All right, welcome everybody to my first day back from Canada. I'm going to start off this class by talking about sort of like my SigCSE report, like the things that I saw and did when I was at SigCSE. And then I'm going to stop the recording and do a second recording where we're going to talk more BST stuff. And that class will be basically your answer to part 2 of Dungeon Delve. Part 1 of Dungeon Delve is 5 points. Part 2 of Dungeon Delve is 5 points. There is going to be zero excuse for anybody to not get at least a 5 on it after today. So we will see very shortly on Friday when I, score it, who's coming to class. Because like if you're here today or if you're in the in-person, you're going to get the 5 points, like guaranteed. All right. So am I muted? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? So, all right, cool. So let's talk about SigCSE. So SigCSE is the world's biggest, most prestigious computer science education conference, and SigCSE Technical Symposium, and it was in Toronto this year. So I got to freeze my forehead mostly. I brought ski gear, but like just my forehead was like freezing when I was there. And so I saw a lot of interesting talks. I talked to a lot of interesting people. And let me kind of summarize the main takeaways from it. The first thing is ChatGPT is like what everyone's talking about. Like all of the biggest sessions I went to were those where they were talking about ways of like dealing with ChatGPT and other AI tools as well. And there's some really interesting perspectives on it. And we kind of talked about different ways of like stopping cheating using ChatGPT. The most common way is what we're doing, like just basically going back, pen and paper, and just pulling people into the class, and maybe for you online people having to go into a testing center, which I kind of don't want to do, and actually verifying that you know what you say you're knowing. So, about 20% cheating is common apparently. So like 20% of this class using ChatGPT is about what other professors are seeing. Fortunately, though, after I told those 20% of the class not to do it anymore, only 2 of them were stupid enough to do it immediately again the next day, and they're no longer with us. They're dead now. So the no, they're not in the class anymore though. So don't cheat. For one thing, just don't cheat. It's a bad idea. And if you think that your computer science professor has never heard of ChatGPT, like that's kind of a dumb move to begin with. It's especially dumb to do it after you get caught doing it and then you do it again the next day. Like that's just like double dumb. So don't do that. ChatGPT is also it can be wrong, but what's interesting is like it's confidently wrong. It's like this is the answer, and you're like, no, it's not. It's like yes, it is, and it'll like rephrase itself wrong again. And so there's been some interesting work in like setting up questions that ChatGPT will get wrong. And that's kind of an arms race. That's kind of one of those things where like as ChatGPT gets better, like you got to come up with trickier questions, and also you come up with trickier questions, you're going to be hosing your students that aren't cheating because they're like, what the heck are they talking about? You know. So there's been some interesting discussions, at least along those lines, for like trapping ChatGPT and figuring out ways of like causing it to not only give wrong answers, but give wrong answers that are detectable by the professor, so that you could fire the students from life for cheating on it. Another perspective, though, was the opposite. And so one of my former professors at UCSD gave a great talk on something I'll talk about in a bit. And afterwards, he referred me to one of his colleagues that is studying ChatGPT and has a book, I guess, in early access coming out pretty soon. And he believes we should be embracing it. Like we should just be writing code using ChatGPT, because at the end of the day, employers want employees that can produce a result. And if I give you a homework assignment, like I don't know, do an RPG or something, then if you use ChatGPT to accomplish it, it's no different than what people will be doing in real life. And so he was like, we should just embrace it as a tool. And like we use autocomplete, right? Like, or at least some of us do. You can hit tab and it fills in the name for you. He's like, it's like that, but it does 5 lines of code at a time instead of, or 40 lines at a time instead of just one. So, but his take on it was like, We need that, especially for non-majors. So like if you have a business person who comes into CSI 40 first semester computer science, and he has never programmed before, and he's never going to program again, this professor's like, what kind of knowledge are you going to expect him to get out of a single semester class? Probably not very much, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you take a semester of computer science, you're probably not going to be a programmer, right? You take it, you forget it, you know. And so his take on it is like, rather than trying to teach them programming like we normally do, let's teach them how to use ChatGPT, right? And so, if you're a business major and you need to do something like filter out, given data, filter out everybody that's not in a capital city, I could write that program. I wouldn't want to, because I don't want to write, like 50 different capital names, and or I'd find a list somewhere and then turn it into a map. Like, I don't especially want to write that, and ChatGPT could just write it for them, and they could use it. They don't have to be like full-on programmers. They could still do programming kind of once they've had kind of the basic skills. And so his perspective is like, we should teach them not only how to use that skill, but also how to like get data into it and how to test the results coming out of it and make sure it's correct, because it's wrong, a fair bit of the time. And like, just to enable, people who are non-majors to like really be able to do useful stuff using it. I thought that was a pretty cool perspective on it. Yeah, basically turning them into prompt engineers, right? So they're not software engineers, they're prompt engineers, right? So the other perspective was to do keystroke recording. And so basically you force students to use your development environment and you log every keystroke. And if you do that, you can tell if they're cheating or not. For one thing, a copy paste, pretty easy to detect, right? But another thing is, like, when people copy code, there's a distinctive pattern to it, and it looks different from how people normally code. And so you can actually tell from the rhythm of their keystrokes and things like that with about 80% accuracy if they're cheating or not. And this works even if like you're in a computer lab and you're just like looking at your friend's terminal and you're like typing along. It catches all those different kinds of cheating as well. And so that's exactly what they said, Megan. Like, the professor's like, until you watch a replay of your own code, you will not believe how many times you hit the delete key. And so that's actually good, Megan. That means you're not cheating, because people who are cheating just go, they just kind of type it in, and and it's a very linear kind of thing. Whereas in real life, you pause, you think like, what's next? Okay, yeah. And so they have like all these graphs of like, the typing times and things like that. And then there's a pause, and you think about it, you type some more, and back, okay, and type some more. So that was pretty interesting, and you're doing it right. So and Tegra jobs, yeah. Prompt engineer does sound like the new script kiddie, but again, it's like, what do you expect people to do if they've had a semester of computer science? Probably not very much. Like, I wouldn't hire somebody to program if that's all they knew. Like, maybe if they'd done things on their own, sure, but like, one semester is not enough. Like, you need a minimum of 40 and 41 together to be like even a junior level job. And honestly, you guys, after you have finished this class, you should be able to get junior level positions. Worried about the ethics of keyloggers? Yeah, that was a big part of his talk. So a big part of his talk was on the privacy issues. And so basically the keylog was actually visible to the students. And so it was only submitted when they hit submit on their homework. So they'd submit their homework and the keylog would go along with it. And the students, it was just a CSV file containing all their keystrokes. Students were free to edit anything they wanted. So if they accidentally typed in their password or something, they could delete it out. Or they could delete the whole thing if they wanted. But then that looks suspicious, right? Because it looks like you've copied and pasted your entire thing. And 10% of students said it caused them a lot of anxiety because they thought somebody was looking over their shoulder every time they're typing, and it made them very self-aware when they were typing and things like that. So I don't think that's a super great thing, although, I don't know. If you allow students to edit it, then all you need is one student who's smart to make a fake keystroke log, and then the whole point is pointless anyway. So, it's I don't really, I already feel like streaming is streaming, so you don't think, I don't think it make a difference. Yeah. And mostly what I'm doing when I'm looking at your screens is just seeing if, you guys are typing regularly or if suddenly, a bunch of code appears and things like that. ChatGPT create a keylog from code. Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of interesting ideas out there. The Zybooks people are doing a new cheat detection system, which involves, and they gave a presentation there, which I don't know if it's enabled just yet, but I'm going to see if I can get it enabled. And a lot of the cheat detection code right now is similarity. Like when I ran the similarity detector last night on all of your homework, and it turned out two students had identical homework, but I talked to them and I was like, okay, I understand why. And then two other ones had identical, and they both went to Mint Curly's tutorial session. So I'm like, all right, I guess. And both of them put in their comment at the top, like, I got this code from Mint Curly, and I'm like, okay, ran it past them. So yeah, and yeah, in some classes you have to do Proctorio, and you have to have a camera, and they make sure you're not looking away from the screen, which would be horrible for me because I stare up at the ceiling. Like when I'm thinking, I'm like, you're cheating. Do you have a flat screen monitor on your roof? So, yeah, online. It's and another possibility is that online education is just going to die. Like that's actually a legitimate possibility. Is that any digital test taking will just go away? That's actually a possibility. And we'll go back to pen and paper tests, which everyone hates. Professors, students, everybody. If you're in an online section, you're going to have to come in at least once during the semester and prove that you know the stuff that you said you knew. So, I don't like it because, like, I want my tests to reflect reality. When you can look up things on CPP reference and things like that, but nothing. If you can look up something on CPP reference, there's nothing stopping you from just asking ChatGPT for the answer, right? So, yeah, and right, yeah, I don't like writing paper on code. I really don't. You make a mistake, you have to erase everything. You're under a clock. My hand cramps up. I don't like it. So, I want to rubber duck you with the words ChatGPT written on it and talk to it in the middle of tests. It'd be funny. Yeah, and you can't compile it and stuff like that. So it's something that like I said, a lot of professors were talking about, and there was a lot of people in the audience, and I talked to some of them, and got their opinions and things like that. So AP computer science sucked because of handwritten code, yeah, and so we'll see how it shakes out because online education really took off after the pandemic, but cheating's been a big problem in online. It really has. And if you are in an online class that does curved grades, that means the people that are cheating are pushing down the grades of people who don't cheat, which then encourages those students to cheat because they have to if they want to get an A. Because you can't compete with, students who already have the answers essentially, right? So that's one of many reasons why I don't curve tests or anything. I don't curve anything. Like you get the grade you get. It's also why I allow you to retake competency exams. So if you potato on one, it's not a big deal. You just take the next one, right? There's absolutely no reason for any of you guys to cheat on any of the competency exams because you can learn the material and then pass the next one. If you fail that one, you learn the material and do the next one. You get 4 shots at it. You get 4 cracks at the bat. So there's just, if you don't get a homework assignment done, take the loss. Don't cheat. Like I said, 2 people have been booted because of cheating. So, and that's not everybody who cheated. That's just the people that I referred to the administration. So, and the time with the tutorial center is huge also. And I also want you guys to get used to the, I want you to get used to the notion of going into the tutorial center and getting help from people. Because especially good students, like A students, are not used to having to ask for help. That is not a normal experience. Tutorial centers are for the dumb kids, and I've never needed to I've never needed to ask for help in my life. I have to ask for help, I'm stupid. No, you gotta understand that in computer science, we all dumb. you know, Reality is that at some point in your computer science career, every single person's had a moment where they're just like, yeah, I have no idea what's going on right now. You have to get help. It really is. And it's oftentimes the A students that have the hardest time because they're not used to that feeling. They're not used to feeling like, I don't understand this. I must be dumb. I don't like feeling dumb. Drop. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, and asking questions is also good too. Integrating ethics in computing education. Yeah. A lot of interesting topics. And then I gave a presentation for about a minute. It was my part, but I was like leading a table and things like that. For the textbook that we use in 4th semester computer science in CSET 45, I'm writing the textbook questions for it. And so they had me come up and talk about my experience writing textbook questions and trying to encourage other people to apply to the program to write textbook questions. Other professors, not you guys, but they're trying to get other professors to join in and help contribute to the project and things like that. That was pretty fun. We hung out afterwards, and then I hung out with the Bridges people a fair bit. Had dinner with them on one of the nights, I think Friday night. Hung out with them maybe Thursday night, and then hung out with them on Friday. Did some photocopies from them. I don't know. They're really good people. And so the Bridges people are great, and they have some new ideas for Bridges assignments that I'm probably going to have you guys do. And I gave them some of my ideas for Pascal triangle and Bridges and things like that. So we'll see how that goes. And played some board games every night. As it turns out, computer science professors are nerds. So after the conference was over every night, I hung out with this guy named Saul. He was a PhD from Carnegie Mellon, and he's going to go move to Indonesia to teach K-12 education. He's a cool dude. He brought a lot of board games. We played them. So, yeah. So as far as like what lessons professors have for you guys, the number one thing they say that students struggle with is time management. So starting early on a homework assignment, budgeting enough time for a homework assignment. One of the professors said he's never had a student that he wasn't able to help if they had enough time. Coming into office hours, asking for help, figuring out where they're at, remediating any gaps in their knowledge. He said no matter where they're at, he could always like kind of get them up to speed if they put in the time on it. And he's like, the amount of time you have to spend on it is about 20 hours a week. If you want to get good at computer science, you should be spending about 20 hours a week on computer science. And if you're not spending that on homework, then do projects and do other things. It's like learning a foreign language. The only way to get good is by putting in the hours, and like legitimately, not like watching TV or something like that, like actually putting in the hours. And not like, oh, I'm starting the homework and then you check email for an hour. No, like actually putting in the time and effort. And that's combined with time management is like the thing that students struggle with the most, because a lot of them, again, are not used to actually having to work to understand the material. Computer science isn't natural. If it was natural, you wouldn't need a class. You just, so, and so optimism is like one of the biggest problems students have. They're highly optimistic about their ability to get work done. I should be able to do that homework in 4 hours. So I will start 4 hours before the deadline. And then they get stuck. They write their code for 90 minutes. They write the entire thing and then flail because it doesn't work. And they start changing things. And they start changing other things, hoping that will change it. And that's what my former professor, Bill Griswold at UC San Diego, was studying. He and his grad student were studying the struggle of computer science students as they're coding. So he developed a metric to measure how much students are struggling on an assignment. And the big upshot from it is if you do what I've been trying to hammer into you guys for a long time, write 3, 4, 5 lines of code, something like that, compile it, test it. Oh, it didn't work. Fix it. versus writing the entire thing start to finish and then trying to make 50 different changes to it afterwards. If you try writing everything at once, you are going to flail and struggle. It is a recipe for disaster. You need to learn how to write just a little bit of code and test that code and get that code polished to a fine sheen, and then write the next little bit of code and test it and try breaking it in different ways, get that thing all polished, and just like you're building a pearl. You just put a little bit of mother of pearl on that little bit of sand. You just keep coating it and making it bigger and bigger until you get it done. And students who do that struggle a hell of a lot less than people who try doing everything at once and then fixing it later, which is a recipe for disaster. Okay, so there should be a life skills class. Yeah, in fact, some computer science programs actually have a life skills class. The trouble is that nobody believes you, right? Until you actually get into a computer science class and start like just struggling, like until you actually experience like the pain of like not understanding something, and it hurts. Like I'm not even being like sarcastic here. Like it actually hurts. Like when you don't understand something, you're like, I don't get it. Like it actually hurts until you've experienced that. Like you don't pay any attention to the people who are saying you should start your homework early. You're like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll start it early. Yeah, sure. For me, it took getting burned on a homework assignment. Like the homework assignment was due at midnight. I finished at 11:58, and the professor collected it at 11:55. He collected it 5 minutes early, and I was missing a semicolon. My code didn't compile. I got a 0. That was one of 4 projects for the class. Homework for the class is a big chunk of the grade. It cost me an entire letter grade in the class. And knowing what I know now as a professor, I sure could have petitioned that. It's like he collected it early. But when I wrote to the TA, I was just like, hey, what's up with this? Like, I had it done. He's like, you should have done it earlier. And to be fair, he was right. Like, you should not be in a position where 5 minutes of time puts you in a spot where you're going to lose a letter grade on a class. But ever since then, I was like, all right, lesson learned. And I would always try and get my work done a full day early because things go wrong in computer science. You don't understand something. You have an infinite loop. There's some test case you're not getting. You need ideally like 48 hours. And then that last 24 hours before the deadline is just really in case something goes wrong, right? And so if something was due on Thursday, I'd do my homework on Tuesday, get it done on Tuesday, so that if something catastrophic happened, it wouldn't cost me a letter grade. And these professors didn't do what I do. Like I allow you guys all sorts of opportunities to make up work, and like the last chance program is more generous this semester than it's ever been. Which, by the way, if you guys don't remember, by spring break, by the end of spring break is when this thing ends. Any missing homework that you guys have, you can do, and this will, I guess, includes the Xi books as well. If you miss anything, you can do a chapter of the old Xi books, because I want you guys going over that old material again. You can't just learn something once. You have to learn it repeatedly to really drive it home into your head. You have to have spaced repetition. And so I want you going back and redoing the old Xi books, for loops, if statements, whatever you're worst at. I want you doing it. And then you can make up one homework assignment per chapter. You have to do the entire chapter of Xi books. It's better to just do your homework on time. But if you got a 0 or a non-perfect score on anything, Xi books or homework assignment, you can do an entire chapter of the old textbook, and that gives you one last chance that you can use due at the end of spring break. Okay? I want you guys staying on that grind and practicing. Don't just not do any of your homework, because then it's all going to pile up on spring break and you're going to explode. Like, you are absolutely going to potato if you've gotten like 7 Fs and you're going to say like, oh, well, I'll just do them all spring break. You're not going to. It's not going to happen. You are not going to get 7 homework assignments done in a week. So you can be, again, optimism. Like that's the really, I mean, it's normally good to be optimistic. In computer science, though, students are vastly optimistic about their abilities. And even when they're proven wrong, even when it's proven that they couldn't do it on time, they will still, for the next homework assignment, like, I should be able to do that in 4 hours again. Nope. So, yeah, Yeah, you need to learn to realistically estimate your skills. Seriously, you do. Optimism is not a benefit when it comes to scheduling. All right, you have to estimate time realistically. Yeah, it'll be different this time. Yeah, and then you get another F. It's not great. And this class is far more merciful than I usually am, and that's simply because I've seen a lot of weakness in the CSI 40 knowledge this semester, and so this is a way to encourage students who are not doing good to go back and really master CSI 40, and not even master, but just like get good enough at the CSI 40 material, because you're not going to continue. Like if you don't know how to write a for loop, I got some bad news for you. The rest of your bachelor's degree is not going to go well. If you can't write a function, if you can't write call by reference, you can't do a vector, you can't do a for loop, it's going to be a train wreck on top of a train wreck. You got to learn it. So, okay. Yeah, range-based for loops, whatever you're bad at, go back and do it again. And all that will be due on April, 10th or whatever. Okay, so that was kind of my SigCSE report. What else? I talked to all sorts of interesting people. I don't know how much you'd care about.
That does sound like an ice cream truck. What the heck?
What was that? What's that, Mr. Bill?
Sorry. Ice cream truck is driving by my house, so it's surprising.
I can't hear you. No. So, yeah, met all sorts of cool people. Met one of the guys who works on like the CID program, if you know what that is. Okay, so that is that. So let's switch over to Pan Dulce trucks. That would be amazing. I'd love to have some Pan Dulce right now. The nearest one's like not close to me though. Okay, so let me switch over now to binary search trees in bridges. Ba-ba-ba.